Thank you, John, first of all, for always being exceptionally good at conducting these, coordinating these events. Let me start, first of all, by saying welcome to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, President Halonen. I'm here as the co-chair of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Greece. We have been partnering with the Economist for the last 6 years in organizing this event, and it's been a great joy to be working with the Economist. And I want to give some thanks to important people who have been involved in organizing this. First of all, the Economist. I want to thank the ministers for being here, President Halonen and distinguished speakers. A special and warm thanks to Nektaria Pasarivaiki, who is a true force in managing this conference and always ensuring that it's has a great agenda and everything is working as it should. A special thanks to the sponsors and to our supporters, the European Parliament Office in Greece and the European Commission representation in Greece. Now, a few words before I get into some of the key topics that John Andrews raised, a few words about the United Nations Sustainable Development Organization network that I represent here. It was launched along with the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and Jeffrey Sachs in 2012. And the main objective was that they had seen over time and from the past, essentially from the Millennium Goals, that if we're going to make any inroads, any substantial inroads into actually achieving the SDGs, there really needs to be institutional structures and close cooperation between different factions of the economy, of the society, primarily academia. We need academics for their knowledge in providing guidance in terms of the nature of sometimes rather complex solutions to moving forward on the SDGs. And of course, we need the business community. We need governments, regional and local and central governments, and we need civil society. So the basic idea was to bring academic community in contact with the rest of these important stakeholders to provide practical solutions to moving forward on the SDGs. Now, SDSN Greece, which is a national chapter of the broader global SDSN, has been around for 5 years. It was launched 5 years ago. Many of the themes that we've seen in the annual conferences have been derived or shaped by activities that the SDSN Greece is engaged with. I tend to present every year progress that we've been making as SDSN Greece. And in particular, this year, we've managed to launch the SDSN Global Climate Hub, which is essentially a focal point of all SDSN activities related to climate change, and the center is here in Athens. So we consider this an important development. We've also launched and began an annual series of Aristotle-Confucian symposia, the first one starting this year, and that engages the Athens Academy, the Chinese Academy, and the SDSN Global. And the idea is to link ancient wisdom with the modern challenges. We know that things are moving so fast, and the nature of the challenges are so great right now, that we really have to draw on all our wisdom from the past in terms of the ethical nature of these issues, and to generate new ideas and new ethical ideas about how we move forward. As John mentioned, the SDSN, in fact, both the 2021 and the 2022 reports on developments for SDGs showed that while initially from the 2015 when they were first established or agreed on, we had a few years of success, there was progress. The last 2 years, if we look at a broad indicator of SDGs, we've been backtracking. And I think it's clear that with the nature of our present crisis in the Ukrainian war, that we're going to be losing ground certainly next year and possibly the year after. A central thread of of our conference over the last couple of years, and in fact from the beginning, is sustainable development in times of crisis. Of course, when we first started, we were talking about the financial crisis and all its implications. Then we had the pandemic, so the last couple of years have been focusing on the impact of the pandemic on the SDGs. And of course, this year, the energy crisis, the food crisis, the geopolitical crisis are going to be central topics that will reflect and impact the discussions we're going to have here today. One of the concerns with the pandemic was that our attention and our focus on actually moving forward in SDGs would wane given the intensity and the short-term, the immediate need to deal with the pandemic. And rather surprisingly, I would say, at least as far as climate change is concerned, overall it looked like it was actually galvanizing and energizing the climate change efforts. In Glasgow, in COP26, we can say that many countries managed to move forward on net zero commitments. So it's not always the case that crises distracts us, short-term crises distract us from long-term objectives. Now, even last year, the new challenges were visible on the horizon. As we moved past the worst of the pandemic, we saw inflation rising, energy prices were rising, and this was happening before the invasion in Ukraine. And then, of course, we had the invasion in February, which really brought shockwaves to the world. We had unimaginable human loss, pain. Energy and food crisis became central. And we even have this concern of nuclear Armageddon, something that we thought we'd never think about again. It was virtually impossible to see. We could say that there's a new term that has evolved and been used, coined, called polycrisis, that has come to characterize our era. Just to mention a few: pandemics, heat waves, floods, megastorms, and wildfires, chip wars, global inflation, threats to democracy, and even world war. Who would have expected that the United States might reach a point where democracy was no longer a part of that world? But we see that is a threat that we're concerned to, and we're very fortunate, at least right now, that in the midterm elections, things went well for the Biden administration, primarily in the sense that it seemed to put at least some dent into Donald Trump's future prospects. Now, the sheer strangeness of this new world is captured nicely by the former U.S. Secretary Treasury Larry Summers. He says the following: "This is the most complex, disparate, and cross-cutting set of challenges that I can remember in the 40 years that I have been paying attention to such things." And as he also stated, I have been paying attention. Now, crisis is a word that comes from ancient Greek, and its origins, in many respects, relate to a heightened need for good judgment, krisis. And that is certainly what we need now. The climate crisis is, by all means, I would say, the most pressing of all the crises we have, because it has a very clear timeline. We have to start reducing carbon dioxide emissions essentially within the next 2 years, and we're still going up. The window of opportunity is very short, and the impacts are irreversible and devastating. So I'll say a few words about the climate crisis related to what's happening now with the, how much time?
Jeffrey Sachs with me.
So right now, should I close it?
One sentence.
One sentence. Okay, one
because
sentence.
Because there will be many more opportunities.
That's what happens when you don't read your notes and you just speak off the cuff. So let me just finish with, we will need to draw on all our ancient and modern wisdom, our scientific expertise, and maintain an open and vibrant democratic dialogue to ensure that we make the right choices to stay on course. And I believe that today's contribution will help in that direction. Thank you very much.